Welcome back to Modifications. And today, because I've had my Golf R for a few months, I'm going to cover some of the items that I like, items I dislike, and items that are in the middle. This is not an in-depth review, but this is just my opinions of the things that work on this car, things that could use some improvement, and just maybe it'll help somebody who's in the market for a Golf R. So let's get started with the things that I do like.
Manual transmission. What more do I need to say? The fact that this car even comes with a manual transmission is already itself a miracle. It's a really good transmission. It feels notchy. It's got very smooth shifting. It's got a lack of chatter. And again, it's a damn manual. That doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its shortcomings, which we'll cover in a few. Number 2, handling / all-wheel drive. One of the biggest reasons you pay a premium over a GTI and many of our competitors and buy a Golf R is because of the all-wheel drive system. And man, is it great. I've pushed this thing so much in the canyons the last couple of weeks, and I've never felt so comfortable taking tight corners. It just stays planted, it feels very confidence inspiring, and it just provides mounds of grip. A lot of that has to do with the dynamic suspension that this car comes with, and I love that it is equipped with dynamic suspension. With a touch of a button, I can make it smoother, I can make it tighter, I can make it feel a little bit better around corners, and it really does have very low body roll. The car out of the box feels very, very stiff and also very planted, and I'm sure an upgraded sway bar would make that even better, but I think that this is one of the strongest points of this car, is the overall handling between the suspension, the body roll, and the cornering. Number 3, the interior. There's many specific things I like about the interior, but I want to focus on a handful of items that I think do stand out over some of the competitors, but also other cars in this price point. One of them being the steering wheel. Really, really great circumference, easy to grip, easy to press buttons, and a flat bottom. What more could you ask for? The seats are a very strong point as well. They bolster you in very well. They're very adjustable, but they're also very comfortable daily driving. I love the center console because you can close some of the different compartments and make it look a little cleaner in there. There's a little bit of gloss black, but we can work around that. But one of my favorite things is this armrest and the adjustability that this provides. I know it's such a small thing, but the amount of comfort this adds, especially if you can just kind of latch it right there, it is second to none, and it makes it very, very comfortable to drive on a daily basis and for long distances. My other favorite feature is the digital dash. This was actually a pretty big requirement for me, and this is why I purchased a 2019. I love the animations that you can see here, so I'll stop talking so you can see some of these. Number 4, the sound system. Mine came equipped with a Fender sound system. The bass is amazing. The speaker locations are great, mostly attributed to also the really cool hatch design of this car. And the audio just comes out very crisp, very clear. It has a lot of adjustability. And of course you can adjust more based on which software you're using on your phone. But listening to music, which I mostly listen to punk rock and a little bit of dubstep and electronic music, is an amazing experience, especially on a daily basis. I love this sound system. Number 5, custom drive modes. With a touch of a button, I can switch between different drive modes, including Eco, Comfort, Normal, Race, and Custom. The custom menu is great. I can mix and match the things I want. I can make it quiet, but fast. I can make the steering a little tighter, but I can also keep the exhaust valves open or closed. It's really, really good. As for the perfect daily driving, I feel that it would be Comfort for me. Eco's great, but Comfort really softens things up and it makes it quiet. The only thing I will say is I wish the changes were a little bit more aggressive in some settings. Let's talk a little bit about some of the weaknesses in the car. And number 1 for me is the clutch. They use the same clutch from the GTI, which I know there's not a massive power difference. However, if you want to go stage 1, even then the clutch becomes a limiting factor, to the point where they have low torque stage 1 tunes for people with manual transmissions. So you definitely want to switch up to a stage 2 or a stage 3 clutch. There's many options available for different usage, for different power bands. However, this is not a very cheap job and it's not a very easy job. But if you're going to be modifying this car, it's something that you want to do, especially if you have the manual transmission. Another bad item, the tame exhaust note. Now I know the Golf R is supposed to be an understated car, which also is reflected upon its looks, which I'll talk about in a second. However, the exhaust, even in race mode, is extremely quiet. I've done a resonator delete, and it still feels very, very quiet. There's a little bit of bass that resonator delete added. However, the difference out of the factory between the two modes is so minimal that I don't think that it should be called race mode. It should just be called OEM Plus or something like that. I cannot wait to get my downpipe installed because this car does need a little bit of waking up. Here's a quick comparison video between the two, and I hate audio videos on YouTube because I don't think they really give you a good idea of what the differences are, but this will make it very clear that there's a very little difference between the two besides some added bass and a little bit of a growl in the cabin.
Somewhere in the middle with this car is the fact that it sits among some fierce competition. Why would you buy a Golf R when there's so many competitors out there? And that's a question that most buyers have to ask with cars like the STI, the Civic Type R, the Veloster N and other N cars, as well as even jumping up from a GTI due to the big price gap. You could even jump up to the next world and go to V6s with the Audi S5, you've got the 440 or the 340, and then also the M340i's that are available as well. Also within the budget, you can get some rambunctious cars such as the Focus RS and some other hot hatches that have existed all through the 2010s. Really, it just comes down to what you want. For those of you that have driven a Golf R, I think you'll understand that this car does everything well-rounded and it makes a really great daily driver. And it's probably one of the most nimble cars out there. And I think that's what puts this car right in the middle, where it does everything really well, but nothing significantly well.
Another factor that's somewhere in the middle. Now, of course, this is my opinion, but I do think that the Golf R out of the box is very conservative looking. Now, that's something that Volkswagen has always prided itself on. The Golf has never looked like a racer boy car. However, if you compare the three between the standard Golf, the GTI, and the Golf R, there's very small differences. They're very subtle, and they're just enough for somebody who really knows the platform to see it. However, at the end of the day, when you're driving by with a stock Golf R, the general public would generally just assume that that's just another Volkswagen hatchback, and they don't realize what kind of a car you're actually driving. And also, in some ways, I actually prefer some of the small, subtle differences between the GTI and the Golf R. I like the front bumper on the GTI better, as well as the small red accents, neither of which are really visible on the Golf R.
One of the quickest ways to identify an R versus a GTI is just to look for the R emblems, which you'll see one on the front, on the side, one on the rear, which I've customized, obviously. And then there's also a logo on the bottom of the steering wheel, and you'll also see a 4Motion logo on the center console.
I know the Golf R has always been stated to be a very undercover kind of sleeper car. However, I wish there was some more differences that would make the front end especially look a little bit different. So there you have it. This isn't one of those videos where I do a deep dive into every single thing that I like or dislike. However, I hope that these highlights give you some kind of insight on what owning a Golf is like. I absolutely love this car. There was a small period of time where I debated on should I get something with a V6 turbo or V6 supercharged engine just because of the power to get away from the four-cylinder world. However, between the nimbleness of this, the looks, everything that I've done to the car and that I'm about to do to the car, I do think that this is a hell of a bargain for what it is. Although it's a little bit higher price for a four-cylinder hatchback, I don't think that there's a lot of competition that checks all the boxes that this car does right off the bat. With that, if you own a Golf R, I'd love to hear your comments. I'm sure everybody has some opposing views to some of the things that I've talked about, or you might even be rolling your eyes at some of the things that I called out as negative. But at the end of the day, those are the things that kind of irk me, and those are the things that I wanted to bring to light that I think could use some improvement on this car. For the price, And for the fun factor, there's not much that beats this Golf R. And I test drove a few other cars recently, the 440i, a M340i, and Audi S5. And I can say with confidence that I plan on keeping this car a little bit longer than I expected, just because I do see the value in it, and also just the way it handles and just the overall package. Just a very, very good car. Feel free to subscribe, leave any comments, any questions, reach out to me. You can also find me on Instagram at @modifications.